Yo guys, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I'll be doing a deep dive into Nava Grove for the remaining units, okay? So in this video, right, I'll also be touching on some of the transacted units in Pinetree Hill and the nearby Resale, and also some of the GLS nearby. So stay tuned to the end of the video to find out more. For those of you that's not too familiar with where Nava Grove is actually at, over here I have a map for you guys, and then you can see we are actually at the Ulu Pandan area, and Nava Grove we are right beside Pinetree Hill. So I will be also touching on some of the different price points and layouts, and also the site plans that is concluded at Pinetree Hill. I'll be touching a little bit on the Tri-Zone because it is still the newest condo in this area. Although it is considered CCR region and is a freehold project, I do still think that it is the closest example to what we have at Nava Grove and also Pinetree Hill in the Ulu Pandan area. For those of you that didn't know, Nava Grove actually launched last year, late 2024. It was together with the EOK Park Wave, and you can see right back then the prices actually start from 2224 PSF, and you can see for the pricing here. For today's video, I'll be touching mainly on the 4-beders because that is the remaining stock lah. So for the 4-beders, right, you can see for the 1335 square feet, it started from 2.99 million, and the PSF was actually from 2238 PSF. Back then, maybe it's not that cheap at 2002 plus PSF, but when we look at today, the prices that has been recently transacted in the RCR region, especially for the new launches, it does feel like this is actually quite cheap because let's say like Faber Residence within 1 km to Nanhua, but they are low-rise development. They're also launching about 1009 2000 PSF range. So if you can get a much better location, like for example Nava Grove location, still within 1 km of Henry Park. For both sides, it's not near MRT, but Nava Grove is a higher floor development lah. So I think a lot has changed since 1 year ago compared to 2024 year end. So over here you can see this is a newspaper article in November 17, 2024. So this was back then lah. Nava Grove achieved 65% sales on launch weekend and an average price of 2448 PSF. So just to give you guys some context, definitely they wrote on the EOK Wave Mega Launch. If today Nava Grove actually launch, right, I'm quite confident it should be able to hit 80+%, 90% sales on its own on the launch weekend as well. And other than that, there hasn't been any confirmation on the Henry Park Primary School 1 km radius because at that point of time, the developers, they couldn't commit to the 1 km radius. I think this was due to Tembusu Grant. Back then when they launched, I think CDL actually said that it was within 1 km of the school. But then after that, when one map actually came out, it was confirmed that Tembusu Grant wasn't within 1 km of the school. So I think for the developers, they are also afraid to commit too early beforehand. At that point of time, I think they only know that one block was within the 1 km radius, but as for the other 2 blocks at Nava Grove, it wasn't 100% confirmed yet. So this was back in November, and then for one map, right, it is usually only updated every May of the year. Yeah, so it was still about 6 months away. So I definitely think the uncertainty for 1 km radius towards Henry Park contributed to this lower PSF lah. So that's why you can see here we're looking at about 2004 PSF range, and this is inclusive of even the smaller units and also the higher floor units. Now fast forward to May 2025, right, you can see over here we actually have confirmation for Nava Grove, all the units within 1 km radius of Henry Park Primary School. So I think this one definitely I shared with my clients on that day, and quite a few units actually moved based on this news itself, because I think some of the units at Pinetree Hill were already sold out for the 4-beders or maybe the 3-beders lah. Remaining units at Nava Grove started to move as well because of the 1 km confirmation. Okay, so now to update, right, the sales so far at Nava Grove. As you can see over here, we are already 91% sold, and this is expected to TOP on the 4th quarter of 2028. So we are looking at almost 3 years left, less than 3 years. And today I'll be focusing mainly on the 4-beders. For the 4-beders, right, we already have 41 units sold, still left with 5 units. 4 plus study, we still have 19 units available, and then the 4-bedroom premium plus private lift, we still got 7 more units. So definitely not a lot of units left even at Nava Grove itself. And now moving on to its neighboring plot, we have Pinetree Hill. So Pinetree Hill also very strong sales. We are already looking at 91% sold. This one expected 3rd quarter of 2027. So this is in 2 years time lah. So you can see, right, just focusing on the 4-beders, the 4-bedroom deluxe with private lift, 45 out of 45 units sold. And then the 4-bedroom premium with also the private lift, also 45 out of 45 units sold. So essentially, right, the 4-beders over here, the supply is going to be very limited already. Okay, so after going through some of the background for Nava Grove and also Pinetree Hill, now let's do a deeper dive right into the comparisons between these two neighboring projects. Okay, so on the left here we have Nava Grove. This one is on a 269,000 square feet of land, total of 3 blocks and Q4 2028 estimated is the DOP. And then you can see based on Nava Grove's site plan, right, definitely in terms of facilities it's gonna be very solid. For those of you who have been to the show flat already, you already know the developer really designed it very well, and I think they could have taken inspiration from the neighboring plot, I'm not too sure, but overall I think in terms of facilities and how the blocks are oriented, right, it's actually quite similar to what we see at Pinetree Hill. Of course it's for the good thing lah, it's not a bad thing. For those of you that's not familiar with these two projects, the plots are actually elevated, okay? So when looking at the expressway, that side, right, the Ulu Pandan expressway, the development is actually elevated, so you don't feel as close to the road itself. And then for the plot that is right beside Nava Grove, we have Pinetree Hill, and this one the land size is at 242,000 square feet. So in terms of the land size, right, definitely Nava Grove is the slight winner because it's bigger by about 20,000 square feet. In terms of how the site plan is actually played out, right, it's very similar. So we also have 3 blocks and DOP is Q3 2027. But you can see in terms of what they offer for both developments, right, very similar. Drop-off point, tennis court, then you got multiple swimming pools, and both are elevated. So definitely I've seen both developments, both has their strong points, and I think they are both very livable projects as well. I think if I were to nitpick between these two plots, right, the only thing is, for example, if you want to take the bus on the opposite side of the expressway, for Nava Grove, right, the access towards the overhead bridge is much nearer as compared to Pinetree Hill. For Pinetree Hill, you don't have the direct access towards the overhead bridge, and also it won't be fully sheltered lah. I think this is the minor thing for this particular difference between the two plots. Okay, so next up I'll be doing a layout comparison between these two projects. Okay, first up you see here we have Pinetree Hill. So for Pinetree Hill, right, I think it's quite straightforward. Mainly they have these two layout types, so it's the 1292 square feet and also the 1464 square feet. For the rest is like either is the top floor unit or they have some minor changes in the layout, so I won't be touching too much onto those. For Nava Grove we have is the 1335 square feet one, 1550 square feet one, and also there is one more 1446 square feet, and it is previously a dual key unit, and the developer decided to change it into a 4+ study because the sales as a dual key unit wasn't doing well lah. I think for me it's quite obvious because in this area, right, if you have the budget to buy a 4-bedder, I don't think you actually want to go for a dual key unit because very likely you won't be looking to rent it out one. I think people here, they really value their privacy. That's why I think if you take a look at some of the layouts at Pinetree Hill, for those with the private lift, definitely it was taken much faster. And on top of that, if you decide to do a dual key layout instead of a private lift, right, I think the sales definitely will be affected lah. So definitely the developer also has seen some of the movements on the ground. They decided to take some feedback, yeah, so that's why they changed from the dual key to the 4+ study that we have right now. Okay, so for this next segment, right, I'll be touching on each development's 4-bedroom layout type, and then after that I'll be comparing them side by side and also the different price points which has already been transacted for each development. So over here you can see side by side, right, we have the Pinetree Hills 1292 square feet layout type that is also fully sold already versus the Pinetree Hills 1464 square feet that is also fully sold. I think I just want to highlight some of the main differences. For those of you that want to take a closer look, you can pause the video or you can reach out to me at 8484-9302 for a more detailed analysis. So over here for the 1292 square feet, right, the main thing I want to highlight is actually on the kitchen area, and then you can see this is like both sides along the pathway lah for the kitchen and the left and right side. But when we look at the 1464 square feet layout type for Pinetree Hill, the kitchen is actually a lot more grand. You have like a kitchen island in the middle, and then the entire kitchen, right, is like a U-shaped kind of concept, so it's a lot bigger and more grand lah. But I would say overall, right, a lot of the space actually went towards this kitchen area, and on top of that you also have like an additional Jack and Jill bathroom lah. So for Pinetree Hill, these two layouts, right, the main difference is the bigger kitchen and also the additional bathroom. Maybe you can let me know in the comment section which one do you think will actually perform better in the resale market, because in the end both of these layout types are fully sold. I think for investment wise, if you want to do it in like a quick flip, the 1292 actually is a very solid layout because it also has a landscape layout along with the private lift. I think for longer term hold, right, the 14641 definitely is a very luxurious type of layout. Landscape, private lift, you got 4 bathrooms and also a very big kitchen area, so it's definitely very livable and very ideal for hosting parties. All these are very lifestyle as well. Okay, so now we have already covered for Pinetree Hill's 4-bedroom layout types. Now let's take a close look right into the Nava Grove's 4-bedroom layout type. First up I'll be discussing is this 4-bedroom layout type, which is previously a dual key unit. So do bear in mind for Nava Grove, these are all harmonized, okay, so it's exclusive of the AC latch, whereas for Pinetree Hill they are inclusive of the AC latch. And for the left side, right, we can see this is previously the dual key layout. So you can see actually at the entrance you got 2 doors. Even after configuring into the 4+ study on the right side, we still have 2 balconies. So the balcony side, I think of course a bit hard to change based on the developers site plans, all these because the facade will also be affected if they change the balcony. So I think maybe they didn't get the approval for that. On the left side, right, you can see the main thing that they change is really on the additional kitchenette. So for the kitchenette, right, they actually transform it into a bathroom so it kind of becomes like a junior master suite kind of concept. And then after that they still configure the bathroom into a storage area with a WC. This is going to be quite similar into like a helper's room, etc. So that's why you can see the developer actually put like the additional doors, they move it back so they kind of segregates it. But the main thing here, they also move the support beams. So previously the support beam, as you can see on the left side, you had 3 of them. So one was in the bathroom 3, and then one was in the dual key unit, and then last but not least you have one in the kitchen area. But after they reconfigure into the 4+ study, right, they actually changed the support beam to be inside the bedroom 4 So this one is like the junior master suite on its own. So here, other than that, right, you can see actually the walkway became a little bit more narrow, and on top of that they managed to remove the support beam from the kitchen area. So why this is a crucial point is because you can see actually they managed to reconfigure, right, the kitchen area to have like a double kitchen countertop with storage, and on top of that the other side they were still able to do a study. So I think this one actually gave the developer a lot more flexibility Maybe you can let me know in the comment section if this was still slightly better than what they previously had for the dual key concept. So now to further elaborate on why the developer actually did a crucial adjustment to where the support beam was actually from the kitchen and then into the junior master suite, right? It's because here now you can see the developer actually offer up to 3 different layouts for this particular layout type. This one you can choose whichever is more suitable for you guys. And then you can see for the first one over here, they actually did like a configuration like a half kitchen, and then on top of that you still got a study area. So this one very likely it should be the storeroom or maybe a helper's room ready. Then now looking at the second layout type, which is the one at the bottom, you can see they actually removed the entire right side of the kitchen countertop in the kitchen area, and this actually allowed more space to put a single bed and actually converting the study into an additional bedroom Okay, it's gonna be a bit cramped, but you can see the concept here, so it kind of earned an extra bedroom. And then last but not least, we have the third configuration for this layout type, and then you can see they actually maintain the left and right side for the kitchen countertop. I think definitely this is the layout that makes the most sense to me because it offers the most versatility If you a family of 4 or 5, right, or even if you are buying for investment, imagine who is your next buyer, because I would say if you actually remove the right side kitchen countertop, I think for families they're gonna find some difficulty in preparing meals, because on the left side if you just have the kitchen basin, like a small area for the countertop, you got the stove and then you got the washer dryer, right? I would say the kitchen is kind of cramped because you don't have space to put like your oven or maybe your water dispenser, all these things. Yeah, it's gonna be overall not enough space even if you have a up and down carpentry done up. And then on top of that, you are still able to use the study area as like an open work desk area, or maybe you can put like other stuff there So I think overall this layout offers the best use case space? Maybe you can leave in the comment section if today, maybe in the resale market, which layout do you think would be the one that makes the most sense? But I think in the end, you can still hack down and reconfigure however you want. Okay, so now that we already have covered what is the reconfigured layout for the dual key into the 4+ study, let's discuss on the 1335 square feet versus the 1464 square feet at Nava Grove. So over here on the left side, you can see this is the 1335 square feet. We still have units available at 3.5 million at 2675 PSF. And then on the right side, we have the 1464 square feet layout type. And this one we also have units still available at 3.5 million at 2416 PSF. Over here, I just want to highlight the main differences, and then you can see on the left side, the 1335 layout type, right? They have a much wider living room area at 3.4 meters. I think it's quite obvious because this was originally designed as a 4-bedroom type. It wasn't like the right side one where it was originally designed as a dual key layout, okay? So here, very wide living room area, lots of space, and then you can see the dining area, you are still able to fit a 8-seater comfortably. And then over here on the right side, you can see for the 1464 square feet one, right? Very obvious, this was originally designed as a dual key, so it has 2 balconies, okay? I think on top of the 2 balconies, you're gonna have a little bit less internal space. So I think internal space may be closer towards 1004 square feet range if you account for the additional balcony. And of course, you have a shorter width for the living room area lah. I think the plus point for this, some of the space actually still went towards the study area. That's why it's still a 4+ study lah. But I think one thing I don't really like is that because they put the new bathroom in the dual key unit, right, and also the support beam over there, it does cause the walkway to be a little bit too narrow in my opinion also. So I think overall this is the main differences between the 2 layout types. I think definitely if you ask me to choose between these 2 layouts, the left one will win by a huge amount because obviously the layout is a lot more commonly accepted in today's market. I think at this price point, I think it's still quite reasonable. But of course, for the reconfigured 4+ study layout, right, you can see the saving grace that we have here actually is the PSF wise. So despite its additional balcony and maybe a little bit inefficiency in the layout, the PSF is still at 2004 PSF. So maybe you can look around the market right now, right? What kind of price points do you actually have for the 2400 PSF range that is still within 1 km of one of the highly sought after primary school in Singapore? I think in the numbers wise, it might still make sense, but of course you need to take a closer look on what is the resale competition and also your neighboring plot. And even within Nava Grove itself, you already have significant competition. This is overall what I can say for this layout. Okay, so right now let's move on to the comparison for Pinetree Hill's 1292 square feet versus Nava Grove's 1335 square feet. So I think first thing here, you can see they already have a very obvious gap in terms of layout. So for Pinetree Hill, on the left side we have is a landscape layout, very wide living room area, but of course you got additional space also in the balcony, and on top of that we also have a private lift. So I think this is the main difference between Pinetree Hill versus Nava Grove. Now for Nava Grove, right, on the right side, do bear in mind this 1335 square feet is actually a harmonized layout. In fact, the livable space inside, right, for Nava Grove's 1335 square feet is actually a lot more than what we see at the Pinetree Hill's 1292 because it is exclusive of the AC latch, and on top of that, the balcony is a lot smaller. Okay, so now, right, let's take a closer look for the Nava Grove's 1335 square feet. Actually, overall, the living room area, right, is a lot bigger as compared to what we see at Pinetree Hill because instead of having a landscape layout, actually it is a very long rectangular shape. So you got a very proper dining area, and then you got a proper living room area. But else for Pinetree Hill, you kind of have to cramp it all together. And then you can see for Pinetree Hill, right, they need to fit like 3 chairs on each side, and then on the top and bottom is for the dining chairs, additional 2 spots. But for Nava Grove, you can easily fit 8-seater and even a 10-seater with 2 additional seats, and the living room area does feel a lot bigger at 43 square meters versus what we see at Pinetree Hill at 27-28 square meters range. If you want to take a closer look also, for Nava Grove, we also have additional Jack and Jill bathroom that is between bedroom 2 and bedroom 3. So I think this is definitely one of the stronger points because for families, maybe you have a family of 4, family of 5, additional bathroom during the peak hours in the morning, definitely it will help a lot more. And on top of that, the bedrooms for Nava Grove is a lot bigger, and then you can see 10 square meters for each common room, and of course bedroom 4 at 9 square meters. But for Pinetree Hill, right, all of them are below 9 square meters. For those that actually need a bigger space in the bedrooms, Nava Grove is still a lot more luxurious in that sense. And then you can see for the bedrooms, also quite impressive, 17 square meters for Nava Grove's master bedroom. And then on top of that, you still got 5 square meters inside the master bath. But if you take a look for the Pinetree Hills master bedroom together with the master bath, you're looking at about 20.2 square meters only. So definitely significant difference in terms of the room sizes and also the additional bathroom. But maybe you can let me know in the comment section which layout do you think makes more sense, because on the other hand, we have a camp of people saying that, hey, wow, this is a landscape layout, and on top of that, it still has a private lift. But on the other camp, right, we have at Nava Grove saying that it is still a lot more efficient because the layout, right, a lot more internal space, and also the bedrooms are a lot bigger. Maybe you can let me know what do you guys think? Okay, so now moving on, I'll be comparing the Pinetree Hills 1464 square feet versus Nava Grove's 1335 square feet. Okay, so on the left side, we have the Pinetree Hill layout. So this one, as I already mentioned, it has the landscape layout, a much bigger kitchen area, and also the private lift. And on top of that, the main difference is also they have the additional walk-in wardrobe area. So I think this is one of the maybe a little bit nicer touch as compared to the Nava Grove's 1335 square feet. Or of course, I think if you minus the AC latch, the size wise, right, we are looking at probably less than 100 square feet difference. But overall, I think the Pinetree Hills 1464 square feet definitely done a very good job, because it really does feel very luxurious. But at the same time, you can see the same issue here. Despite its bigger size, the dining area, you can see the size is a bit limited in terms of where you can put your table, unless you choose to do like an alfresco dining style. You choose to put the dining area in the balcony, then I can see like your living room area a lot more space. But if you still choose it to put indoors, then definitely it's not going to be a very spacious living room area. On top of that, you can see for the 1335 square feet layout at the Nava Grove, right, they actually separated the wet kitchen into two parts. So they got the wet kitchen and they got the dry kitchen in the living room area. So I think this one kind of offers like a slight similarity in terms like a kitchen island, but it's outside lah. So this one, of course, the 1464 square feet one, they already have done a proper kitchen island in the middle. And of course, if you have guests coming over, you definitely will keep the doors, the glass doors open lah. So I think still a very nice grand concept, and it doesn't limit the space that is for the dining area into that spot only, because if you open up the kitchen fully, you can still enjoy the kitchen together with the whole living room area as a whole. Okay, so next up we have, this is the Pinetree Hills 1464 square feet versus Nava Grove's 1464 square feet. So I think if you put them side by side, right, on the left it's going to be winning this layout on the right side by a mile. So it's very important, right, when you already see the plots side by side. So in terms of side plan, I think generally they're going to be quite similar, but in layout wise, this Pinetree Hill one is going to be winning by a huge mile. Okay, so very important, right, if you are considering this Nava Grove's 1464 square feet, you must ensure that the price point that you're entering doesn't have too much overlap with what we see at the Pinetree Hills 1464. In terms of pricing, it's going to be too similar, then I think it's going to be quite difficult to exit the Nava Grove's 1464 square feet one. This is my own opinion, especially in the resale market, because imagine if in the resale market, right, when you TOP maybe 2030, so this is about 1-2 years after TOP already, and you decide to offload your unit, people will be comparing like Pinetree Hills, this 1464 square feet versus Nava Grove's, even though it's harmonized, but they'll be still comparing to this layout, right? I can imagine definitely the price points won't be the same. So very importantly, you need to understand, make sure you're not paying a premium as compared to what the people have already transacted at Pinetree Hill. But of course, maybe upon TOP, then you can start to see a lot of sub-sale transactions or even transactions for this layout, right? If they're going to be creating a lot of new highs at Pinetree Hill, then you'll be like spilling over the prices at Nava Grove. But I think that's not very ideal, right? If you want to buy such a high quantum unit, ideally you want to get into something that still has a very strong exit audience also, and not relying on like spillover prices just to have your unit so-called have the more cheaper alternative. I don't think that's a very good feeling as well. Okay, so last but not least, I'll be comparing Pinetree Hills 1464 square feet versus Nava Grove's 1550 square feet. For the Pinetree Hills 1464, I won't be touching much on this unit because I've ran through it a few times. So now let's focus on Nava Grove's 1550 square feet. And now you can start to see some difference differences. For Nava Grove, right, finally we have the first like landscape layout, but of course it is still slightly more narrow as compared to what we see at Pinetree Hill, because Pinetree Hill, this one is at 5.6 meters width, whereas for Nava Grove, this is at 5.2 meters width. Although, right, for Nava Grove, it has a slightly more narrow width in the living room area. The living room area actually is much bigger than what we see at Pinetree Hill, because you can see the living room area, the sofa is all the way back to the wall. You can still have additional 2 more couches on the side, and you got the dining area right in front of the dry kitchen area. Whereas for Pinetree Hill, to be honest, the space is kind of limited, because you can see they are still forced to have the living room area with the sofa, and then right behind the sofa is the dining room area. So definitely Nava Grove's layout at the 15501 is winning by a huge amount. But of course, I think the kitchen configuration at Pinetree Hill is still a very strong plus point, because it does look very grand in terms of like hosting your guests on your kitchen island, etc. But for Nava Grove, they decided to do the more conventional one. They decided to split it into a dry and wet kitchen area. Maybe you can let me know in the comment section which one you think is better. Overall, I think Nava Grove one definitely is still quite impressive in terms of the living room size, and I think for those of you that wants a more luxurious feel to the whole unit itself, I think Nava Grove one definitely will take the cake, okay? And on top of that, same thing for the smaller units at Nava Grove, and also the bigger ones for the 4-bedders. They have 10 square meters common bedrooms and also 9 square meters. Whereas for Pinetree Hill, even at their 1464 square feet layout types, right, their units is also almost 9 square meters type. And last but not least, you can see for the master bedroom at the 1550 square feet for Nava Grove is at total of 26 square meters. This one, when you compare to what we see at Pinetree Hill one, only at 24.2 square meters. So overall, Nava Grove one, same thing here, bigger living room area, bigger bedroom types. Okay, so right now I'll be comparing the views for the 4-bedders between these two developments. So first glance, right, you can see for these two different developments, their blocks are not parallel to each other. For Pinetree Hill, it is on the direct north-south orientation, whereas for Nava Grove, the developer actually did a slight tilt for the units. So like for example, at stack 11 and stack 14, you do expect a little bit of the west sun. For 19 and 22, you are facing inwards towards the swimming pool side, whereas for stack 11 and 14, you'll be facing outwards towards the Ulu Pandan expressway, and also the greenery facing. Whereas for stack 15, you're facing towards the tennis court area inwards, and also Pine Grove. Whereas on Pinetree Hill, you can see for the 4-bedders, you got stack 13 that's facing towards the expressway side and also the greenery facing, and stack 17 that's facing inwards, also facing towards the tennis court area. Whereas you got stack 5 and stack 8 that is facing towards the pool side and inwards facing, and this one has the longest setback because it will be towards the greenery that side as well. Okay, so now I'll be doing a price analysis and also comparison, right, between Nava Grove versus Pinetree Hill, because I think in the end, in the resale market, this will be your direct competitors. And also for people that is looking to enter Nava Grove, I think it's quite important to know what has already been transacted at Pinetree Hill, so this kind of forms the price support in this area itself. First up we have is Pinetree Hill's 1292 square feet layout type on the left. So the lowest price transacted over here, which is the low floor units, are 3.204 million. So this was going at 2480 PSF. Do bear in mind that this is a pre-harmonization layout, so don't have to account for the AC ledge. So highest, this one was at 3.526 million at 2730 PSF. If you actually plus 5% to account for the harmonization, then this one will be looking at maybe 2008-2009 PSF range already. And these are all fully sold out at Pinetree Hill's 1292 square feet. On the other hand, this is the Nava Grove's 1335 square feet. So right now we still have an available unit at 3.507 million, going at 2675 PSF. And then you can see this is already harmonized already. So if you count in the AC ledge one, right, actually the PSF difference we should be looking at is about 200 PSF difference. But of course, layout wise is going to be a little bit different. One is landscape and then has private lift. The other one has a much bigger internal usable space and also bigger common rooms and then the master room. So this one really depends on your personal preference. I think both layout is going to be quite solid. But overall, when I see Nava Grove's 3.5 million price tag, right, I think it's still quite reasonable because this is a high floor unit. So this is going to be quite similar to what we see at Pinetree Hill's highest floor transaction. So I think overall, in terms of entry price, we still see a very fair price support in this 1335 square feet layout type. And I'm very confident this unit won't be available for too wrong, because if you've been looking around in the recent launches, right, I think for this price range, this PSF, it's gonna be quite hard to find 4-beders, especially within RCR and 1 km radius of a good school. So I think overall, at the point of recording, this is still available for you guys that's watching this video. If you think this is something that you can consider, or you just want to find out more about like what are your options at 3.5 million range, you can feel free to drop me a WhatsApp at 84849302, because definitely I think your options, there is quite a few, but there's not a lot of good deals left, so you can let me know if you want to find out more. Next up we have is the Pinetree Hills 1464 square feet. So for the lowest floor one, the lowest price transactions at 3.444 mil, 2353 PSF, and then the highest is at 3.987 million. Highest PSF is 2724 PSF. So this one also same thing, non-harmonized layout, so you need to account for the extra 5% lah, and this is all fully sold out already. And now looking at the nearest comparable, we have Nava Grove reconfigured 4+ study. So this is a 1464 square feet. Cheapest available unit right now, 3.537 million at 2416 PSF. So I think definitely in terms of price range, 4+ study is actually quite attractive there. I definitely think it will still take a while to move this layout, because we still have units available for the 1335 square feet and also the 1550. I think this one will still only move maybe towards nearer to the end, or if people don't really have much options, or if 2026 the RCR launches go very crazy in terms of pricing, then I do see this one might move a lot faster lah. But for now, I still think this one will be, you know, not so fast lah, even though the pricing is quite attractive at 3.5 million range, 2004 PSF. For 4+ study in this locale, right, I think already quite difficult to find, especially in the new launches at 2004 PSF range. So that's why I say in the end, in terms of PSF, it's still quite attractive, but of course layout is a whole different discussion also lah. So now we have is the Pinetree Hills 1464 square feet versus Nava Grove's 1550 square feet. And just now I already mentioned for the pricing for Pinetree Hills, so I won't touch on that. Now if you look at Nava Grove's 1550 square feet, right, the cheapest unit available as of recording is at 4.081 million. So this PSF is at 2633 PSF. So definitely, right, I think for the remaining units, this is definitely one of the more impressive ones already, and it does stand out, and I would say it's a very good competitor towards Pinetree Hills 1464 square feet lah. But of course, I think you need to take into account that this is a harmonized project, so the internal space usage and also they exclude the AC latch, so definitely PSF wise it's going to be a lot more value for money. But of course the quantum is a lot higher compared to what we see at Pinetree Hill. Even at Pinetree Hill's highest price range, right, of 3.987 million, you still got quantum gap of about 100k. If you look at the highest one, of course quantum gap is okay, but if you compare to the lowest price gap at Pinetree Hill, right, we are looking at a whopping 640,000 in terms of quantum gap. So I think this one definitely you need the Pinetree Hills this 1464 low floor units to catch up a lot. Then I think this Nava Grove unit will still make sense. But of course, if you look in terms of actual usable space, right, we are looking probably at 150 square feet difference. I think for 150 square feet difference at this $2,600 per square feet, the price gap is quite okay. Yeah, it's quite okay, not that big of a gap, because that one probably will be a 200 plus K, 300k quantum gap. But of course, if you compare the lowest transacted one, you're still looking at 600k price gap lah versus Nava Grove. So in terms of the units moving, right, this is my own personal opinion. I personally feel that the 13351 will move first, followed by the 1550, and then last but not least will be the 1464 unit types at Nava Grove. Maybe you can let me know in the comment section, because I think in terms of quantum, 4 million plus, we already see like Sky and Holland done the number of transactions at this quantum. Zion Grand also done multiple units at this transaction. So for 4-beders, I won't be surprised at this price point anymore. I think this is quite cheap, in fact, if we look at PSF wise. But if we look at, let's say, in terms of the layout popularity, I think the reconfigured 4+ study probably will take the longest to move. Okay, so next up is gonna be the recent 4-bedroom transactions that's already done nearby. First up we have is Pinetree Hill. Just not like I already covered this, so I'm just gonna repeat it quickly. 1292 square feet, the price range was done between 3.2 million to 3.5 million. PSF is 2004 all the way up to 2007. Whereas for the 1464 square feet one, 3.4 million onwards until 3.9 million, done deal. 2003 PSF all the way to $2,700 per square feet, already transacted. So the next one we have is the 4 bedrooms at the Trizon. So these are already all the transactions done, and just some context, right? Trizon is a CCR condo. It also has a freehold lease and it DOP in 2013. So it's already about 12 years old as of today. So you can see for the Trizon, right, the latest transaction we are looking at is 4.8 million quantum, and the PSF transacted is 2087. Do take note, their 4 bedders are all very big. Minimally we are looking at 2,000 square feet. Okay, so the latest unit was 2,314 square feet. So I definitely think for this area, right, in terms of quantum, it won't be a big issue, because what I see for the 4 bedders already done at the Trizon. Of course, the units are much bigger and also it's a freehold development, but in the end, it's getting on the years. It's about 12 years old already. For the buyers that want the newer plots, very likely they will still go towards Pinetree Hill or even Nava Grove, because in the end, if the development is too old, even though it's a freehold development, right, you still need to spend a lot of money on renovations, etc. So this might not appeal to maybe the younger buyers, and at the same time the floor plate here is all very big, so resulting in a very large quantum. And you can see not many people actually can afford this 4.8 million quantum condo. For here, Trizon, right, you can see the transactions is averaging about once every month, once every 2 months kind of quantum, kind of volume. Whereas you can see for Pinetree Hill already fully sold out for the 4 bedders because it is much smaller as compared to Trizon, and also Nava Grove's one already slowly clearing stock as well. So another one I want to touch on is Key Residences. So this one is not exactly nearby. I think it's one of the closer ones, which is a newly DOP project. So this is 999-year project and it's along the Sunset Way area. At the time of launch, it's not near MRT lah. You can see for the recent sub-sale transactions, right, we already have a couple, and the latest one we are looking at is at 2.88 million. So this is a 1259 square feet unit, 2287 PSF, and you can see this is a 6th floor unit. In the end, for developments not even yet near MRT and also not that high rise, right, already managed to transact this PSF in the sub-sale market. And of course, we even have the higher ones like the 0815. They transacted at 2.96 million, almost 3 million quantum. The PSF is 2350 PSF. So of course, this is a slightly smaller 4-bedder lah, yeah, and not near MRT. And if you take into reference, right, you compare this to Pinetree Hill one, actually their quantum is still below what Pinetree Hill actually transacted. Yeah, but overall here, I do see the units being cleared up quite well in terms of supply and demand for Key Residences. So just now, why did I mention the supply and demand is pretty good here at Key Residences? It's because a quick check on Property Guru as of recording, we only have 4 units on sale. So one of the listings, right, I saw was actually this 4-bed 4-bath 1475 square feet unit, and this is already asking at 3.68 million. PSF is 2494 PSF asking price. Okay, and to be honest, right, the other 2 units that is among the 4, right, there are 3 plus study. So in fact, the real 4-bedders only got 2 of these. And then if you see on the right side, right, this is a mega 4-bedder 2239 square feet unit, 4-bed 4-bath, and this is asking price at 6.58 million, PSF 2938 PSF. So overall, in a mega development like Key Residences, right, the number of units available on sale actually very limited. And if you look realistically, for a 4-bedder in the 1,000, 3,004 square feet range, we only have 1 unit available, and their asking is already at 3.68 million. So on top of the low resale supply, right, that we see at Key Residences for the 4-bedders, over here you can see for Pinetree Hill and Nava Grove, to be honest, right, we only have a total number of 205 units in terms of 4-bedroom supply. It's out of 1,000 units around there lah. In the end, I would say in terms of the limited supply of 4 bedrooms, I'm quite sure also in the resale market there shouldn't be that many 4-bedroom supply also. That is for people looking to sell in the sub-sale or in the resale market, at least upon TOP. So now for the next segment, I'll be touching a little bit on the recent RCR New Launch transactions and why I still think Nava Grove at this 2003-2006 PSF range is something still worth considering. Okay, so first up we have over here is the 4-bedders transacted at Penrith. So you can see, right, for this 1281 harmonized layout 4-bedders at Penrith, right, The quantum already all done in the 3.8 to 3.9 million range, and the PSF, right, we are already easily more than $3,000 per square feet. So for Queenstown area, of course, there's a lot of HDB upgraders, $1 million HDBs, and proximity towards MRT. But other than all this, right, to be honest, in terms of school, it won't be as popular as something like Henry Park, etc. But of course, the lack of MRT does play a very huge part here. But to say that the PSF difference of $400 to up to $600 per square feet difference, I think it's quite interesting to see the take-up rate for Penrith. Yeah, so I think sometimes it might be better, right, to take a step back and then take a look. In the market, there is still options that is maybe 400k cheaper than what we actually see at Penrith, and the PSF wise is still about 400 PSF cheaper as well. And I think this strategy will be very helpful, especially if you're looking to minimize your downside risk, because I'm very sure people looking at Penrith, 4-beders, all this, I don't know if they are actually looking to flip the units or is it for own stay purchase, because in the end at $3,000 plus per square feet and almost $4 million quantum, right, you are actually looking to sell next time probably 3,004, 3,005 PSF, and the quantum probably has to hit 4.5 million, 4.6 million for a decent amount of profit. And next up, another RCR project. So for Zion Grand, as you guys know, sold very well on launch day also, and you can see the transacted PSF here from 3001 all the way to 3428 already being transacted, and these are the bigger 4-bedroom layout types, 1615 square feet. The quantum already transacted at 5.5 million plus. So definitely for those of you that is still looking around in the market, I think you kind of have to accept that for the bigger 4-bedders, people are already paying at 5.5 million, and these are not even freehold, but of course it's very convenient location. It's like kind of integrated with the MRT and also a lot of shops below. But at the same time, at 5.5 million quantum, I'm sure all these 4-bedder buyers have options as well, not necessarily only have to go for Zion Grand. Okay, caveat, I'm not saying that the people that bought all these high floor units at Penrith and Zion Grand actually made a poor purchase. I'm not saying that, but I think in the end, for the quantum that's accepted at these two locations and new launches, right, I definitely think the PSF gap towards Nava Grove or the Nava Grove 4-bedder left, I think it's a significant price gap. So that's why I still think there should be still quite a good safety buffer for the pricing at Nava Grove. At least that's my own opinion. Okay, so now after discussing the 4-bedroom RCR new launch transactions recently done, I also want to take a closer look in the RCR 4-bedroom resale transactions already done. So first up we have is Woodleigh Residences. As you can see over here, this is a 99-year leasehold development, TOP 2023, so it's about 2 years old now, and it is an integrated development. It has a shopping mall, bus interchange, and Woodleigh MRT station. As you can see, for the 4-bedders, the PSF done already is in the 2005 all the way to almost $2,700 per square feet, and the quantum done, right, 3.45 million all the way to 3.7 million. And now for Sterling Residences, the second one. So this is also a 99-year leasehold development. It's a mega development in Queenstown area. It's near Queenstown MRT lah. So TOP 2022, and you can see for the transacted PSF, we already see 2518 PSF all the way to 2638 PSF, and the quantum done is 3.38 million all the way to 3.55 million. For Sterling, right, because I've already done the analysis for my previous client, we all know that for Sterling itself, especially the 4-bedders, the supply is extremely limited, especially for the Queenstown area. Next one we have is Parc Esta. So this one will be nearer towards Eunos MRT, that side, and it is also a very popular development. So this is a TOP in 2022, and the transacted PSF here 2098 all the way to 2591, almost 2006 PSF. Quantum transacted at 2.765 million all the way to 3.38 million. So even at Eunos area, right, we also have this kind of quantum and PSF done already for the 4-bedders in the resale market. And for those of you that's looking around Parc Esta, you also know the 3-bedder, the 4-bedders, the supply is extremely low. It's very hard to get good price, one of the best facings in the development lah. And last but not least, we have Jadescape. So Jadescape, right, this is a 99-year lease development, TOP 2023. So it also has the Marymount MRT and also school component lah. So for the pricings already transacted at Jadescape for the 4-bedders, we have is 2172 PSF all the way to 2541 PSF. and the quantum range is from 2.735 million all the way to 4.05 million. So definitely, even at the Marymount area RCR, the prices already transacted at 4 million plus. So that's why I'm not surprised like at the take-up rate at some of the new launches for the RCR and even some of the CCR projects. So now that we already have what we see in the resale market, in the recent new launch market, the 4-bedroom transactions done, right? Do you actually think that the remaining units at Nava Grove for the 4-beders does still make sense in today's pricing at the quantum and also at the PSF? Maybe you can leave in the comment section what do you guys think. Okay, so right now I'm gonna be discussing right on the future plots based on the master plan itself for this area. Now you can see here you have the master plan, and then at the bottom left corner we have Nava Grove and also Pinetree Hill. So they are in the 240,000 square feet to 260,000 square feet land plot size range. And then after that you can see on the top right hand corner we have the Holland Plain GRS. So this one is about 183,000 square feet of land. I think these plots are going to be quite similar in terms of like their unique selling points, because for the Holland Plain one will be towards Methodist Girls School, and whereas for Nava Grove and Pinetree Hill they will be Henry Park Primary School lah. Yeah, but of course for the Holland Plain GLS, right, they are also going to be quite near towards the new King Albert Park MRT, but that is still going to be taking a while during the construction phase. But of course for Holland Plain they are going to be classified under the CCR region, whereas for Nava Grove and Pinetree Hill it is still considered in the RCR region. But in terms of the distance between these 2 or 3 developments, right, I really think it's not that far apart. So I would say this is quite a close comparable. And one more thing I would like to add, right, is that the plot ratio for the Nava Grove plots versus the Holland Plain GLS, right, you can see for the Holland Plain one we're looking at 1.4. So as compared to the Nava Grove area of 2.1, definitely the plot ratio is a lot lower. So do expect not so high rise developments, especially in the Holland Plain area. Okay, so just to share a little bit more details on the Holland Plain GLS, you can see this is bid by Sim Lian, they are the developers, and the estimated break-even price after all the marketing and construction costs, right, we are looking at is 2587 PSF PPR. So although it is very close, very central location towards King Albert Park MRT, which is the Cross Island line, and at the same time also within 1 km from Methodist Girls School, you can take a look, right, the pricing is at minimally 2005 at break even. To be very fair, I think Sim Lian, they are very seasoned developers, so they definitely know what they're doing, and I definitely don't think they overpaid for this particular plot land. So if you take into perspective, right, just a 10% profit margin will already land this project in the $2,800 PSF region, and then if you add on 20%, 30%, we should be looking at easily $3,000 plus per square feet for the launch price at Holland Plain GLS. So definitely I think if you are considering this area, right, maybe you can think of it this way. I'd rather pay $3,000 per square feet for this Holland Plain GLS, which maybe the plot ratio is a bit lower, the land is a bit smaller, but it is near towards the MRT. Or maybe I can take that sum of money, right, to go and buy a Nava Grove or Pinetree Hill unit instead. For the same size, I can still buy a car. It's a new car lah. So I think for me, I personally will go towards not so, maybe a more ulu plot of land as compared to what we see at the Holland Plain one, because in the end, if you pay almost $3,000 plus per square feet, imagine if you want to exit next time, how much you will need to sell at. So I think all these things definitely will be part of the considerations for buyers that is looking in this area. And at the same time, this Holland Plain one, they should be launching maybe this year or maybe late 2026 or maybe 2027. So in the end, that will be the time that Pinetree Hill already TOP, and also Nava Grove still got 1 more year to TOP. To elaborate further on the construction for this Cross Island line, right, you can see in this newspaper article, from Jurong Lake District all the way to Turf City MRT on the Cross Island line, they are considered in the phase 2 construction. The phase 2, right, they are expected to open in 2032. The interchange will be at King Albert Park MRT and also Clementi MRT. So that's why you can see the government, they already start to introduce the population over there by selling the lands. So I won't be surprised if by the time 2032, most of the land plots there should be already up to ready for the MRT usage. If not, then I think it will be underutilized, because in the end King Albert Park already has MRT. So if you want to add on additional interchange, especially at the King Albert Park MRT, right, then you have to reintroduce the population over there. If not, it will be underutilized. So just to help you guys visualize a little bit better for like Nava Grove versus the Holland Plain GLS, right, how it will actually look like based on past case study, over here I've prepared for you guys for Resale Grand versus Parc Clematis, because I do see some parallels between these two different areas. Over here I have is the map of these two plots. So on the left we have Resale Grand 99-year lease TOP 2022, and this is quite near the expressway, whereas we also have Parc Clematis TOP 2023 and also facing towards the expressway side for a couple of blocks. So of course Parc Clematis is going to be a lot nearer towards Clementi MRT, is about maybe 10-11 minutes walk, whereas for Resale Grand definitely not within walking distance at all. I think in terms of location, right, and when they actually launch, it's quite similar as compared to what we see at Holland Plain versus Nava Grove. So for Resale Grand on the left side, over here you can see for the PSF transacted in 2018, right, we actually have $1,200 per square feet up to $1,400 per square feet done. In 2025, the PSF actually hit $1,900 per square feet, already done deal for the 4-bedders. And now for Parc Clematis, right, you can see it launched 1 year later in 2019. The PSF transacted is between $1,500 to $1,600 per square feet. The PSF transacted today, recently for the 4-bedders, we have ranges between $2,000 plus all the way to $2,300 per square feet. So you can see, right, the price gap between these two plots from 2018 to 2019 period, that time was about $200 to $300 per square feet, and we fast forward to today in 2025, the PSF gap still maintains about $200 to $400 per square feet gap. So definitely I think in terms of the price gap is still quite similar. Of course, if we talk about ROI, definitely Resale Grand will be much higher because of the lower initial capital outlay as compared to Parc Clematis. Parc Clematis, the quantum is higher, but of course I think for both developments the profits are still very decent. And for the people that actually chose to wait for Parc Clematis, maybe because of the MRT or that, they didn't really profit extra. It's just maybe same amount of profits or maybe slightly higher, but in terms of ROI percentage, it's still the same. So now that we already have seen what happened between Resale Grand versus Parc Clematis, what can we learn from this particular case study? For me, right, when I look at Holland Plain GLS versus this Nava Grove unit, I really think that Nava Grove, this particular plot, the PSF gap, right, will still maintain to what we see at Holland Plain at a 2-year gap. So for example, maybe Holland Plain they launch at $3,000 per square feet. For example, this $400 per square feet gap, right, at Nava Grove versus Holland Plain, I think it will still remain even in the resale market. I don't think it will necessarily catch up by a lot or lose out by a lot, but in the end this gap will still maintain due to the premium for the MRT. As we can see at Resale Grand versus Parc Clematis, the units also still maintain this price gap in terms of PSF. Okay, so right now I also want to touch a little bit on the macro picture for the RCR 2026 new launches. So you can see, right, if you guys got watched my previous video that I've done there, I did discuss about the demand supply there, in-depth analysis, you can check that out. But just to give you guys the main gist of this part related to Nava Grove, there's gonna be only 3 plots in the RCR region for next year's new launches. So in summary, it is very low in terms of supply. So first up we have is the Dorset Road plot, 425 units, Thompsonville Condo, 1002 units, Media Circle Parcel A, 325 units. So overall, right, when we add the current units we have in the post-launch supply plus next year's supply, we're only looking at 4,300 plus units. So you can go and watch my previous video where I actually discussed about the demand and supply. Then you actually realize like how little supply there is in the 2026 RCR new launches. And I do think for the RCR resale market, definitely they will be moving a lot more in terms of PSF and quantum, simply because there's lack of supply in the RCR new launch market also. Alright, so that's it for today's video. For those of you that gotten some value out of it, you can feel free to leave a like and subscribe. And also if you like this kind of deep dive analysis, right, you can check out my YouTube channel where I've done other deep dive analysis for other property launches as well. And also for those of you guys that's interested to find out your options in this budget range, or even for other developments nearby Nava Grove area or other new launches, you can feel free to WhatsApp me at 84849302. Looking forward to hear from you guys, and have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Okay, bye.